sharing great moments. Relax, you got Chris and Charles. Oh, we have it all. When you think loans, think Chris and Charles.
For all your electrical needs, visit ABC Electrical Sales. They stock a wide variety of electrical supplies including plugs, switches, panel boards and conduits, plus energy-saving fixtures. ABC Electrical Sales stocks brands like GE, Siemens, Philips, Cutler Hammer and Allen Bradley. They also offer free island-wide delivery just to suit your needs. Visit them at Shop 8, Hagley Park Plaza, Kingston 10 or call 876-754-3714-5 or 876-754-3825-8. ABC Electrical Sales, for a better choice in the electrical business.
Need to make a change to your title or need a title? GeoLand Title Limited is the place to be. They do lost title application, add and remove names from titles, wills, estates, first-time registration, land surveys included, affordable rates and flexible payment options, National Land Agency adjudication and land titling waivers available. They have 8 locations island-wide. Call 876-754-6436 or visit their website at geolandonline.com. GeoLand Title Limited. Secure your land, secure your title.
Good evening, rather. I said good afternoon, but it's evening. We usually start in the afternoon, but it's evening. Welcome to a special edition of Nationwide at 5. Here we're coming to you live from our studios. And of course, we have an eminent panel lined up for you to react to the Prime Minister's contribution to the 2026-2027 budget debate. We have with us President of the Jamaica Manufacturers and Exporters Association, that's the JMEA, Catherine Silvera, Senior Lecturer in Economics at the University of the West Indies, Mona, that's Dr. Christine Clark, and we have social and political commentator Newton Harris, and on the phone we have political commentator Lloyd B. Smith. All right, now the Prime Minister, he spoke for I think about approximately 4 hours, and he mounted a robust defense of his decision to accept his salary increase, telling Parliament that unlike the opposition leader, the demands of his job prove why it's right for him to do so at this time. Yes, and of course he delivered other jabs at the opposition leader. But before we take any clips or anything, we just concluded the presentation from Parliament. Let's just go across the board and take just reactions, your immediate reactions to the Prime Minister's contribution. How would you grade him on substance and on form? Beginning with you, Catherine Silvera.
I would say that I thought it was an overall very visionary presentation, and I suppose that's what you need to hear coming from the Prime Minister. I think that he could have spent more time, not more time, but less time on other things. I think, we wanted it to be shorter than the 4 hours, that's for sure. But I still am yearning to hear more about specific
details on certain aspects.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
So I would grade the Prime Minister an A-.
What was?
And I would say that I still want to hear more, especially about, he brought up public sector wage sustainability, but didn't really go into detail about it. We spoke about it the last time we were here.
To employ.
He spoke about NARA, but I would have really liked to have heard even more about NARA and in terms of timelines on things that NARA is going to be in charge of. I think that's what was missing as well, because a lot of the visions that he has put forward in his speech are looking like medium to long term, so not within the next year or two, but it would still be great to understand timelines.
All right. I want to come back to you and ask if he has somewhat, dealt with your concerns, because I know there are concerns. So I want to come back to you and ask you that. But Dr. Clark, your immediate reaction to the Prime Minister's marathon contribution to the budget debate.
Okay, thanks. I think his presentation is pitched probably at the right level. I'm not sure he made all the punches that he wanted to in terms of the emphasis on how all of this translates to economic development. I think that is what I'm getting from his presentation. Not so much, yes, he has indicated, the periodic intermittent growth, and he gave that graph showing what has happened over several quarters. But I think he's painting that picture that should carry us beyond the electoral cycle into the next 2 or so electoral cycles, if the projects he's proposed get off the ground in the next 3 years.
All right. Newton Harris, over to you. Your grading of the Prime Minister's presentation.
Good evening, Tyrone. Good evening, ladies. It's a pleasure to be here with you again. This evening, I give the Prime Minister an A. Just a slight upgrade.
Take off the minus,
A-.
yes.
Yes, man. Give the Prime Minister an A. I
So
think.
now I have to say A+, right?
Oh, you didn't give us a grade.
remember
you're
that.
are you going A+?
No pressure.
Are you
Right.
are you going A+, Dr. Clark?
No, I think it was a good presentation. The A is where I
Is
think
sufficient.
Yes.
All right.
So I think the Prime Minister. So I hear you on the issue of time, but I think to cover the kind of ground, the history, the economics at a level that most Jamaicans can understand. I think the Prime Minister was in excellent form again. I think the presentation, it was an interesting listen. It wasn't boring. It was a very interesting listen. I think it was arranged in a very strategic way. I think it was very well arranged. I think a lot of thoughtfulness obviously went into it. And he and his team obviously did a lot of work. I think the A's deserved. I liked that the NARA, the legislation for the NARA, is now tabled. That was a huge question for a lot
And
of
the opposition
persons.
called for that
And
as
the
well.
opposition has been hammering, where is the NARA? This is what you claim Jamaica needs. Jamaica needs something. You've said this is what Jamaica needs. Where is it? It's months now afterwards, and this is your suggestion. We need proof and evidence that the government is working. Well, it has been tabled today. Parliament will now, and the country will now have a chance to see what at least the framework, the legislative framework will look like. Obviously, there are the regulations and policies and other documents that will give it flesh, but at least now we have this to start to chew on a little more. I think the Fast Jamaica is something else that is very interesting. Of course, I love the policy announcement that 20% of houses will now be, of new housing starts will now be reserved for young people.
NHD
Absolutely love that. It was already
And 2
at
million,
10,
I
I
think.
believe, 10%, but now it's 20 and then the 2. So all those I hope we get a chance to talk about this evening. I know we don't have a lot of time. When you sit here, you
No.
think you have a lot of time, but you don't, you know?
We'll come to unpacking the specifics after this round. We have Lloyd B. Smith on the phone. Lloyd B., you've seen many of these presentations. How do you grade the Prime Minister's contribution to the budget debate?
Well, I would give him an 8 out of 10. I am perhaps not as overwhelmed as your other guest, but he did a very fine job, I thought. But one of my concerns is that, as was mentioned by one of the persons who spoke before me, I would have loved to have got some more specific timelines, because we have a problem in Jamaica, as a former U.S. ambassador once said, that we are very great and very good at making announcements. And on the other hand, the realities do not come as one would have anticipated in a timely manner. And that is one of my concerns, because what he presented was a smorgasbord of many visionary projects. And in fact, at one stage, I was wondering if I was in a time machine and he was making his 4th term budget presentation, because many of these things that he has put forward surely will not come to fruition in this term, you know.
So he's already making the case for a 4th term in government.
It would appear so, yes, you know. But, and then my other concern, too, is that one of the problems we have, the bureaucracy, and I see where we're having so many new entities, the NARA and the FAST and what have you, and these entities, you know, tend to act like silos. There is not that interconnectivity, and the Prime Minister himself has spoken about this in the past, about the bureaucracy and the layers of bureaucracy which hold up programs from coming to fruition. So I would have wanted to have heard if there was going to be some oversight body apart from his team self. Because I think he's going to be tremendously overworked because many of these things will come under his aegis in his particular portfolio areas. So for me, it's the implementation aspect of it that bothers me. But apart from that, visionary, I thought too that he was very gracious and conciliatory. I liked how he dealt with the National Housing Trust issue and bringing in Michael Manley's contribution. I liked too when he engaged the leader of the opposition in the area of values and attitudes and the whole business of creating a more kind and tolerant society and getting rid of the crassness. That is very significant to me because the governance issues should not take a back seat outside of the economy and other pressing issues.
All right. So we've gotten general observations there. Let's, Dr. Clark, begin with you. Let's try to unpack the Prime Minister's contribution. What was the high point for you listening to all of what was said?
I think part of it is the focus on the productivity challenges that we have and some of the contributing factors to it. Painting the course of the extensive infrastructure work, though, that he intends to do is where I'm concerned with, as was indicated as well. I mean, it's going to be tremendous to coordinate all of that to ensure it's at the quality that we want it to be in the end, to ensure that all of the necessary underlying or supporting infrastructure is put in on time. I'm not sure which entity could say right now that I could oversee this at this point. So it will require a lot of coordination across government, not necessarily the type that says I'm the boss or I'm going to hold this up and see how far you can go, but a truly collaborative effort. That is my concern. And then, overall, almost everything here requires a lot more in terms of governance and policy effort that is going to take a lot of resources to implement the actual implementation. Even the act, it's fine, put it on the table, but let's translate that into the activity, the organization, the deliverable of KPIs and whatever it is to take us to the finish line. That's not going to be a trivial effort. And so I think certainly OPM and Cabinet Office and the other entities that have some experience will have to kind of lay it all on the ground to get this done.
Do you think expanding the cabinet is an option he should consider because of the magnitude of some of what he has laid on the table?
I mean, I couldn't say if it's expanding the cabinet. I think certainly the effectiveness of the Cabinet Office and the various committees that meet to help the Cabinet Office's work progress, the PS board and the other committees, to ensure that where there are challenges, they can be quickly overcome. If there is benefit from private sector involvement in some of these committees, we see the emphasis coming back on stream in terms of PPPs. It's going to require that kind of everybody at the table and more agility in how they operate, not necessarily more persons, more cabinet ministers being named.
Catherine Silvera, I've heard this from almost all of the speakers in terms of what needs to get done, and Lloyd B was hammering this home. The Prime Minister has made popular a phrase. He says Jamaica suffers from an implementation deficit. He says that very frequently in when he's addressing matters. What stood out for you? What was it, those projects as well, and that implementation deficit that he speaks of? How can we get rid of that? Because I think there's an onus on him as the Prime Minister to try to help to solve that as a problem that we face. He has diagnosed the problem. He has appointed Ambassador Marks to address the efficiencies or the lack thereof. Did you hear in his budget presentation how we plan to prepare to tackle that as a country?
No, I don't think we really heard that fully. And, I think it's a definite mindset change that needs to happen across a lot of the agencies and ministries of government. I think that at the top, at the head, the ministers and the
Permanent
CEOs and the
secretaries,
PS,
yes.
the permanent secretaries, they have that mindset. They want to see the productivity increase. They want to see the growth. They want to see the implementation. But a lot of the time, unfortunately, I think because of challenges in the past in terms of how strict agencies have had to be. Procurement is one aspect of it, how cumbersome it has become and bureaucratic and everything like that. I think that the general staff levels, they're afraid. It's black or it's white. There's
Almost
no
afraid to
gray
be
area.
efficient.
And they're afraid, I think, to take initiative, to take ownership, to understand the realities of, things don't always happen A, B, C. Sometimes you have to go to Y and then come back. And I think that is really the huge challenge, and what we have to overcome as a country is a mindset change. It's the ownership, it's the owning of your role and your responsibilities, and understanding that sometimes you have to play in the gray area while ensuring that you're covering your bases and you're covering yourself.
And in your estimation, what was the high point of the Prime Minister's contribution? What do you think was the high point?
Well, I think the high point is definitely that the NARA has now been formalized. I think that is something that was announced immediately after the hurricane, and all of us have been wondering, what is NARA? When is it going to happen?
Legislative framework,
The legislative framework. I think that's the high point for me, because that's certainly what is going to be needed to drive the country to be more resilient. And hurricane season is in 2 months.
Absolutely.
2 months and 2 days, I think it is. So,
Yeah.
or 2 weeks, 2 months, 2 weeks, something like that. And it's not going to be something that can be implemented for then, but we have to work quickly on this.
Absolutely. How about you? What's the high point for you, Newton Harris?
I think the Prime Minister's insistence, and I think rightly so, that where we go from here, or rather that we're in a stronger position to go from here because of the discipline, because of the base that we had created, because of the platform that we had created in our recent history. So there was a point at which I think a lot of people kind of looked up when he said, where would we be if we had listened to those who in COVID said, use your reserves and spend? The people need spend. And the government at the time said, okay, we have rolled out Jamaica's largest social welfare program at the time in response to COVID. But there is more that we need to do for the broader view of the economic fundamentals. The Prime Minister again asked, where would we be if we spent out all our buffers and had no cushion? So having experienced the worst natural disaster in Jamaica's history, and now coming into another round of, international uncertainties and challenges. Now coming into another round of that, where would we be? I think that framing was excellent. I think it resonates with a lot of Jamaicans who remember the times when inflation was out of control, when oil prices were announced on the international stations today, and overnight prices at the pumps shot up, without explanation. We're not talking about the regular Thursday. This is some, we're living in unprecedented times in terms of the kind of stability, at least in my lifetime. The kind of stability, the kind of predictability of life. It's actually quite comforting, and I don't think people understand. So when the Prime Minister asked that question, it caused a lot of people to I think, take pause and to look back and to appreciate just where we are a little more.
I want to bring you back in, Lloyd B. Smith, and I want you to talk about the political side of things, because clearly the budget debate, it's a political theater is a part of it all, right? But there are two moments that I want to remind the viewers of that the Prime Minister took jabs at the opposition leader. One had to do with the water analogy that the opposition leader delivered during his contribution. And the other is this one. Let's have a look.
Madam Speaker, I have a gift here, if the standing orders would allow. I want to give it to the leader of the opposition. If he doesn't, if you don't want it, that's fine. But I thought it would have been so appropriate. I thought this would be a good. By the way, Madam Speaker, this is a cap that is one of our local designers. It's a very popular cap. None of them, with their self-righteous objection, declined to take their salary increase. None of them. The opposition only talks. I do the job of Prime Minister, and I head 4 other ministries. The leader of the opposition only talks. Many times nonsense. And takes home $27 million. In the last term, the leader of the opposition earned more than the Prime Minister. The opposition spokesman on finance stood in this house and said the opposition has no problem with the increase in MP salaries. A few days later, the PNP General Secretary put out a release saying they strongly object to the salary increase for cabinet ministers and members of parliament. Yet, Madam Speaker, none of them, with their self-righteous objection, declined to take their salary increase. None of them.
That video there, of course, courtesy of the Jamaica Observer. When we come back, we want to hear you on it, Lloyd B. Smith, and of course, I'd love to get the panelists on this as well. The Prime Minister threw several political jabs at his opposite number. We want to find out, did they land? We'll do that after this break.
Need help or want to report damage? Visit supportjamaica.gov.jm to find nearby aid, updates, and emergency support all in one place. The time by the Office of the Prime Minister is
7:01.
1, 2, 3, boom. Green light.
You mean red lights?
Green light. Everything easy and instant when you click the chatbot icon on the CNWJ Credit Union webpage.
So what?
Just become a member of CNWJ Credit Union. You can save, make deposits, and get loans. Speaking of loans, once you become a member, you can instantly apply for a loan right there online and have the cash in your hand within 24 hours.
We are chatbot.
No, chatbot.
Conditions apply. CNWJ Credit Union. Discover the benefits of belonging.
Every day, Rosie has a glass of fruit drink with breakfast, an energy drink on the way to work, a flavored water with lunch, and 2 glasses of soda with dinner, which adds up to more than 50 teaspoons of sugar a day. And all that extra sugar could bring on obesity. Are we drinking ourselves sick? 71% of Jamaicans support a tax on sugary drinks. Help tackle obesity and protect our children's future. A message from the Heart Foundation of Jamaica.
Jay, you know say Mike no come.
Hold on.
No, sir. That sound like consumption. What that? Tuberculosis, aka TB.
Now all time something that. After nobody not get that again.
So you think TB still the boat?
If you have a cough for more than 2 weeks with fever, night sweats, and weight loss, go to your doctor or health center and get tested now. Let's be vigilant and stop the spread of TB infections. A message from the Ministry of Health and Wellness.
By the way, how much was this one? How much was this one? This is less than $100. This is 44. This one is $44. Very nice, very nice. But I have another present for you. Send this over. Give me another one. We have one for you. This is NWC water. NWC water. So this is about $20, right? Of course. That was I brought it here. So when I heard
national education, they have got to do it.
So when I heard the protestations of the leader of the opposition that water costs more than gas. So yes, if you bought Avion or some other, but that's not the question. The question is, why would the leader of the opposition go and buy water that costs more than gas when there are other options that are more economical? Madam Speaker, to me, it tells me that I wouldn't trust him with managing my economy.
The voice there of the Prime Minister. Lord B. Smith, as an independent observer, I watched and I winced. I felt it for the opposition leader. I think the Prime Minister really rained blows on him today. Did he land any of those blows? What's your scorecard on that?
I think he was spot on, bullseye. The fact is that Mark Golding is not much of a politician. He's more of a legislator. And he walked right into that one. When I listened to his budget presentation, he was doing quite well until he began to politicking, as a matter of fact, at one stage I said to myself, hey, he's going down the road of campaigning, and that was part of his sort of, politicking and repartee, which I knew that Holness was going to be.
It seems we've lost Lloyd B. Smith. Lloyd B. Smith, are you there? We've lost him. Well, let's turn to the panel that we have in studio. Hopefully we'll try to reconnect with Lloyd B. Smith. You're the water lady on the panel. Perhaps I should begin with you, Catherine Silveira. Your brand was name dropped by the Prime Minister. But did you think political blows they landed? The Prime Minister did well on the political side of things?
I think the blows did land. I think we all, as you said, kind of felt it for Mr. Golding. I think it's part of the political theatre that we expect at debate time. Mm-hmm. Do I think that maybe we need to rise above that as a nation, and maybe truly rising above that is going to lead to the values that the both Prime Minister and the opposition leader spoke of. I think that is an important characteristic out of both of their debates, because it's something that I truly believe that we need to work on as a nation, is our values and how we pass those down to the next generation and really develop them, because that's really, I think, what's also going to take us to the next level as a country.
So you think we should abandon the political theater side of things?
I guess it wouldn't make it as interesting or as fun, but I think that it's hard to land those blows and then work together as in a unified way.
But if it's going to be long, we might have a little bit of fun, right? Because if it's long and not fun, then we might suffer even more. I think we have Lord B. Smith back with us on the phone lines. Lord B. Smith, are you back with us?
Yes, I am.
Yes, you were saying the Prime Minister landed those blows.
Yes, definitely. It was a knockout punch. The fact is that Mark Golding walked straight into that one. As I said earlier, he sort of segued into some kind of campaign-type presentation. He was doing quite well before that. And he ought to know that once he would have gone down that road, the Prime Minister being a very skillful politician, you have to give him that credit. He has a way of, countering whatever is said to him or about him. And he was spot on this time. And I think this salary issue is a dead issue. The only politician in Jamaica that has any moral authority to speak on the salary issue is Bruce Golding. You go back into history and see how he handled the salary issue when he was Prime Minister. I don't think any one of them else has that moral authority at this stage. So Mark should have left that alone.
Absolutely.
And so the Prime Minister quite rightly delivered a knockout punch.
I was thinking about, he mentioned that this is his, I think it's his 11th contribution now for this third term, 3 years that they've been in power. But I thought back to him starting out where he just became Prime Minister, and how he has morphed in front of us, Dr. Clark, as a political heavyweight. He's no longer that neophyte. He has morphed into this political heavyweight. He's morphed into this statesman, even at the regional level, at the international level as well. It's not the same Andrew Holness that we're looking at. Isn't that so?
That's true. I mean, I'm not a political scientist or, on the IR side, but it's what you really would expect from someone who has been a leader for so long in seeing Jamaica through various phases of its development. I mean, we've went through a lot in the last decade, we would have to say. And so you expect, again, as I'd indicated before, someone who is looking at the longer picture, the picture that will probably materialize, hopefully, if all goes well, long after he's no longer in the political landscape at all. So we expect that, and I think there are going to be Jamaicans that will say they expected even more from him today. To be more on point, to be clearer than he was, and to perhaps be more articulate in terms of how all of this is going to join up together. He's also one who is championed that cause of the joined up government approach, which is definitely, we'll need more than that, but definitely going to be important going forward. So I think, yes, he has learned from his many mistakes and has tried to basically project that image and that calm, the confidence, and this is where we're going, this is the vision approach that I think Jamaica definitely needs in the context of our local, regional, and of course international landscape that we face.
Newton Harris, surely in your mind, this wasn't a scorecard victory. It's not a technical knockout. The Prime Minister landed the knockout punch with those political jabs this afternoon.
Absolutely. I think so there was the bottled water issue, there was the anti-bad mind cap that we saw earlier.
That the standing orders might not allow.
That the standing orders may or may not. I don't know if we get some of the marshals in the house to deliver. But that AI has already, fitted the cap. The opportunity has already been capped. So maybe tomorrow morning you can tell us how well you think it fits.
Wow, that is something. I haven't seen that, I must say. But
yes, man, it's already out there, looking quite nice. But Dr. Clark. So apart from the water and the cap, there were two issues that stood out for me as well. The international relations, the handling of the foreign policy, I think actually proved to be a knockout blow. And also the issue of the salary. Which one you want me to take first, the salary or the IR? Let me take the salary.
Let's go with salary, yes.
So remember that the Prime Minister was now responding to the opposition leaders' comments in his own presentation on the salary. So I think the Prime Minister was quite well within his rights to go as hard as he did. And I think a lot of people will find it quite interesting that call, sometimes you don't hear things as they happen. And I think the Prime Minister displayed that he knows the politics and he can be quite statesman-like. He could have said, look, I'm not taking mine, your leader took yours. And there were people over there who ball out for it. But having been drawn on the issue, he chose to say today, look, this is the reality. And if you keep hammering, I'm going to, I can one-up you. So that was a very interesting little nugget that was dropped today in Parliament about the opposition members' request.
And he went back to a statement that he issued, because there has been talk that he campaigned on not accepting the salary, but he went back to a release to say, he stated that if a new Prime Minister is given a mandate, they can actually take that salary, which I think was actually a brilliant move, because I did not even recall that he had done that.
Absolutely brilliant. Absolutely brilliant.
To bring the press release, and he presented it in Parliament. It was displayed as well.
He should get an A+ for the presentation, and not just the A that I gave before. I mean, it was brilliant.
As we continue talking.
It's brilliant. And then they wanted the international relations.
Yeah, before you move on it, Lloyd B. Smith was coming in on that point. You wanted to come in on that point, Lloyd B. Smith, about the presentation?
Yeah, I was just saying that, the Prime Minister was spot on, and it was a sidebar. It was political theatre, and some of that is always part and parcel of parliamentary procedures, especially during budget debates. But I just wanted to quickly state, though, that what I also was pleased about with the Prime Minister, for example, that suggestion that came from the opposition spokesman, Julian Robinson, the digital invoicing. The way in which the Prime Minister embraced the suggestion and dealt with it in a rather deft way, in terms of seeking to put it within the menu of government options in terms of, taxation measures and so on. And I thought that, again, he did that quite well. It was rather statesmanlike, and we need more of that, I think. This sort of conciliatory approach, it doesn't always have to be combative.
Adversarial, yes.
If the opposition gives a good idea, work with it. We are one nation, one people, and I thought the Prime Minister, for me, that was one of point where I'm concerned.
Absolutely. You said you wanted to, thank you, Lloyd B, for that. You said you wanted to touch on international relations. I want us to talk about Cuba after this, but let me hear you on the point you wanted to raise, Newton Harris, about international relations.
Pragmatic yet principled. I think the Prime Minister has used those words before, but the way that they were, the illustration that he painted today of the history of decolonization
and the global ideologies that contended over time.
Indeed, the East and the West, and where we found ourselves and having to make principled yet pragmatic choices for the welfare of Jamaica, and sometimes did not result in Jamaica's welfare. And we can talk about that. You said you wanted to talk about, I think we'll talk about that on Cuba. But the way that the Prime Minister gave that lesson in history, geopolitics, I think was masterful, and I think a lot of young people will appreciate that. A lot of young people who are hearing a lot of the arguments in the public space who don't really understand. I think this was a good lesson, and or at least an excellent starting point to go into that, to try to understand our context a little better, because it really does, the waters in which we swim will always be choppy, but there must be a guiding principle, and I think the Prime Minister has outlined his vision, at least the way he executes his foreign policy.
He did address the Cuban medical program. I want to remind the listeners and the viewers what he said. That first bite in Shaloy's rap studio, the Prime Minister says he remains hopeful the Cuban medical program will review arrangements around the medical program with Jamaica. The Cuban government, will review the arrangements around the medical programs with Jamaica. So he's holding out hope. Let's listen to what the Prime Minister said.
Is with the government of Jamaica by the United States regarding the Cuban medical mission more than a year ago. We reviewed the program against our laws and the various multilateral conventions under which we have obligations. However, there were some aspects of the program which were brought to the attention of our Cuban counterparts, to include how personnel were paid, that run counter to our own laws and several international conventions. We continue to be hopeful that some agreement, arrangement, some changes can be made to the program. Every year since I have been Prime Minister and before, in this House, we have debated motions on the embargo on Cuba. This notion about abandoning friends, and look here, man, keep that in the 70s. As our closest neighbor, we are concerned for the situation in Cuba. Through CARICOM, Jamaica will do its part to offer support for our brothers and sisters in Cuba.
Now, the Prime Minister also touched on an issue which I want us to delve into as well. He says his administration must be strategic in the balancing of the motives of its foreign partners against the interests of the Jamaican people. He sought to make it clear that there are core beliefs on which his government would not compromise.
My administration has always ensured that our foreign policy serves our economic interests. Whatever I do must make sure that Jamaica can recover quickly. And we see the benefits of our foreign policy efforts in the swift mobilization of relief and access to over $6 billion of reconstruction funds from the multilateral financial system. I don't want anybody to talk about foreign policy because there's no other era in which Jamaica's foreign policy has delivered economic benefits for the people of Jamaica. As a responsible member of the global community, Jamaica will always take the necessary action to be compliant with all our obligations under the multilateral system. Nobody has to put sanction on us or force us because we have agency. Yes, there are things we must resist when it comes to our values. There are things that define us as Jamaicans that we're not going to change on those. Man is a man, woman is a woman. We're not going to change on that. But we look at the things that are also in our economic interest.
Lord B. Smith, an explosive political issue internationally there the Prime Minister is touching on. Perhaps some would say it might be a little astute on the part of the Prime Minister that the current holder of the office of the President of the United States agrees with him here. Lord B. Smith? Yes, Lord B. Smith.
Yes, could you repeat that, please?
I was saying the Prime Minister touching a politically explosive issue internationally there with that comment about a man being a man, and that there are certain core values that Jamaica is not prepared to negotiate on. And I'm saying perhaps some would argue that it might be politically astute that he's being strong on this because the current office holder of the U.S. is quite clear and he has expressed that he holds similar views.
Yes, we are well aware of his views on this matter, and as against what the Democratic Party has espoused, the whole business of the transgender, kerfuffle that continues to be brought up in sports and even in politics and otherwise. I think Mr. Holness, Dr. Holness, again, that one, he was throwing that is when you throw red meat, to your very rabid supporters who would take that on. You remember some time ago when there was an attempt to introduce certain aspects of a program in the Ministry of Education, and we also remember when the rainbow flag was hoisted on the U.S. Embassy.
And there was that famous Bruce Golding interview as well.
Mm-hmm. Yes, not in my cabinet, So, and we all know that historically the Labour Party has always aligned itself with the Republican Party. Historically that has always been the case. And he also brought up the issue of Bustamante saying we are with the West.
Yes. I see you jumping at the bit for that one there, Newton Harris. Go ahead, sir.
Yes, thank you. Governments will always have to battle with ideological and the ideas of gender and so that's that. But my interest lies with the tangible benefits that the government always talks about. That the practical nature of the foreign policy, practical and principled, means that there is tangible benefit that is coming into the country. I think if we look at the security cooperation, I think when we look at, there are some broad things that are happening in the country. It's good things. And we need to sort of look behind the announcements from each particular ministry. So Ministry of National Security will be talking about the crime statistics, but there's international cooperation behind that the government has to work on. The Ministry of Agriculture will be talking about opening Parnassus and the other irrigation projects, and those are great. There's a lot of international cooperation behind that. So when the Prime Minister talks about principle but pragmatic, there are serious issues, serious benefits, serious tangible things that inure to the benefit of Jamaicans that we have to secure. So this is not an airy-fairy idea, right? So when we talk about tangible, I see Catherine nodding here. Thank you. I want to say governments don't trade enough. So it's up to the private sector, but the government has to create the conditions so that, yes, your base is solidified within the country so that you can look outside, but then we have to make sure that the markets are receptive. We have to make sure all of these things so the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and Foreign Trade is not just doing the bilats and making sure the foreign collaboration comes in, but then the foreign policy on the trade side is also very important. So I think Jamaicans should really pay a little more attention to the significance when the Prime Minister takes so much time in his budget presentation to talk about foreign policy. It's a really serious issue.
Andy so vividly made a point about, we can't just be willy-nilly with our actions. And he made a point about being locked out of the international banking system, that if we are just gung-ho with things, that could be one of the what results from our actions. And it's very important, Catherine Sylvia, that we must, given our geopolitical position, we must walk between the raindrops.
I agree. I think that it takes a very skilled person or persons to be able to do that, especially with the geopolitical landscape as it is right now. And I think it's certainly for private sector, it's very important that we, as a country, keep our risks low.
So you don't want them engaging in any unnecessary international diplomatic row.
I mean, what you said about the banking sector is a reality. I mean, if it is that we couldn't freely trade or send money or receive money, or that would be a bombshell to Jamaica.
And it could cripple us as a small island developing state.
Yeah, I mean, we would recall perhaps our recent anxiety when we were on the FATF grey list, right? I mean, we spent extensive resources, right? And that could have led to, us being shut out of the international financial intermediation services. So it's not something to take lightly. There seemed to be some, romanticization of going it alone and doing
standing
it
up to
and
the
standing
establishment,
up.
the global establishment.
I'm not sure that the persons who are so gung-ho on that have really thought through the implications of that. I don't think people really understand what Cubans go through. Yes, they love their country. Yes, we're not arguing for or against, but it's a different living arrangement from what Jamaicans have become used to.
Right.
So if we're willing to go that route, I think we'd have to take a concerted decision, almost unanimous.
Right.
But I don't think it would be prudent. I don't think it would be appropriate for just a governing party or even along with an opposition to take decisions that would have such far-reaching consequences without understanding the implications, really. And I'm not even sure if just studying it, you can understand it.
Right, because it's one thing to acknowledge the sovereignty of another country and not to interfere in its affairs. It's another thing to have to facilitate, which is what the government is seeking to avoid, to facilitate breaking your own laws to facilitate the other country's system, which the other way around is actually might be seen as interference in our own system, our own sovereignty, because you can't facilitate the breaking of Jamaican laws. It's a very complex issue. So I appreciate how the Prime Minister has handled it.
Let me hear from you. We've heard from the because I know the panelists might need to skedaddle in a short while. But we've heard from the finance minister. We've heard from her opposite number, that is Julian Robinson, the opposition spokesman on finance. We've heard from the opposition leader, Mark Golin, and we've heard from the Prime Minister. Who is your star of this year's budget debate? Because we know the finance minister will come and close next week. But so far, and Catherine Silvera is looking away, so I'm going to pick on her and ask her first. So far, who is your
If
star
I look
performer?
at you, I'm first. If I don't look at you, I'm first.
I mean, you can
I'm the first female president of the JMA. I suppose that's why.
Right. So I do homage. I'm paying homage. So I'm giving you first bite at the cherry, or first sip of the water if it's avian. But talk to me. Who do you think is the star performer?
Well, I think the Prime Minister is definitely the star performer because he's the current head of the government. He laid out a very visionary plan. I do want to give kudos to Julian Robinson, though, because I think that for the first time, the opposition came with a series of plans. Alternatives
Yes.
that weren't tax-based, actually. But very good suggestions. So I do think that the star does go to the Prime Minister, but I think kudos to the opposition, actually, for coming this time, for giving a good show of themselves.
Absolutely. Dr. Clark?
So I think in looking back at the 4 presentations, I'd have to agree with Catherine. I think the Prime Minister did what the Prime Minister should do, which is not go down too much in the weeds and kind of lift up every blade of grass and, show us the road, but to give us an insight as to why he may be doing all of these things. Where are we going in the next 2 or 3 decades? How do we want to look? Are we still going to be as we are and just kind of tweaking just to get a short-term impetus? Or will we do something that will open up the country for all Jamaicans, not just for any particular group? And so I think that was worth us listening to and hearing. I think our finance minister will come back to close in a more firm way than she's opened. I think most people are of the view that her presentation did not join up enough dots for us. I mean, we had that discussion here. So I think she will have to, as they would say, wheel and come again to give us that closure. I would say, though, that I think most of the details, and I'm hoping that Parliament will do a good job at the sectoral debates. I mean, we are worthy of hearing the details, the timelines, the KPIs for these projects and how they all will work together, not just work on their own ministerial thing, how they will work together to get us that symbiosis going forward.
Lord B. Smith, only the finance minister remaining to close the budget debate. Who's your star performer? Oh, it seems we've lost Lloyd B. Smith. Well, we'll give you a bite of the cherry, Nunaris. Who's your star performer?
The Prime Minister. I think at the lowest earning, the lowest scorer would be the leader of the opposition, who seemed to have brought back, resuscitated the election campaign material, which we could have done with better. We could have done better with better. And then the opposition spokesperson, Mr. Robinson, who I think was much more reasonable and measured, and actually brought suggestions for us to think about. I think Minister Williams then scored higher, and I'm waiting for her to come and tie things up. And I think, obviously the Prime Minister today, as I said before, his A+. I think it was really good. As a country youth, I really appreciate hearing names of places outside of Kingston. I love hearing not just the Black River, we know it was destroyed, but the Falmouth, the places in Hanover, the Lucy, the urban renewal is something that has been, as a younger person, I don't know, there's a bias. If you see something your whole life, you get kind of used to it, and you don't think of change, how different it could look. But as a younger person who has been between rural areas and urban areas, I kind of look around some of these old towns, and like Brownstown, for example, and wonder, could this be different? Could this be better? How can we make it better? So I like to hear about the plans for the rural areas, rural development. I really appreciate
But keeping the history, though.
But keeping the history.
Because
Thank
that's super important.
Thank you. Absolutely. Every great city has that element of respecting the history, but even next to a historical landmark is a new architectural masterpiece, you know? Yeah. So that's quite, thank you for that. That's great.
Well, I think we have, before Lloyd B. Smith is back with us, before I pull Lloyd B. back into the conversation, my producer, super producer, tells me she has that AI hat with Mark Goling. Oh, well, for those who've not seen it, that is what Newt Harris was telling us about. So that is Mark Goling in his, what does it say there? Anti-bad mind?
Anti-bad mind.
My goodness, I tell you, I winced for Mark Goling this evening. I must tell you. Lloyd B. Smith, you're back with us. You're a star performer of the budget debate so far, with only the finance minister left to close the up shop.
What is the question?
Oh, the star performer, in your estimation, because we've heard from all the individual parties already.
Out of the 3?
4. Prime Minister, Finance Minister, Opposition Leader, Opposition Spokesman, and Finance.
Okay. I think it is fair to say that the Prime Minister still comes out on top. For me, what was most significant was the overarching blueprint, national blueprint that he presented with respect to the infrastructural development of the country. As I did say in my opening remarks, not many of those will be achieved within the current, 4-year term, 5-year term, but at least he has presented a vision for the future leading us into Vision 2030 and beyond. And it's going to be a very hard act to follow. And successive administrations will have to pay attention to this blueprint because it is comprehensive, it's visionary, and it is the sort of stuff that good things are made of. For me in the West, I like the idea of the Performing Arts Center for Montego Bay, which has been one of my major bugbears for years. And when he said that, really, he captured me there, you know. And I think overall, what he did today was a tour de force. Of course, implementation is going to be the most important thing, and that is where I have my concerns. Because as I said earlier, too many of these bodies that are created act as silos, they don't interconnect, and as a result, development is stymied.
Joined up government, as they say. On that point of implementation, and like I said, I've not heard him in recent times use the term, but over these years since he's been Prime Minister, he's mentioned a number of times that Jamaica doesn't suffer from great ideas. We suffer from what he describes as an implementation deficit. But in this clip in Kalisha Wright's rap studio, where he mentions the facilitated acceleration of strategic transformation FAST Jamaica framework, he says it's designed to shorten the process of implementation of key investment projects. Let's listen to the Prime Minister.
We will introduce a new framework called FAST Jamaica, the Facilitated Acceleration of Strategic Transformation. This will be part of our national growth inducement strategy through investment. FAST Jamaica will establish a dedicated pathway to fast-track strategic priority investment projects critical to Jamaica's economic transformation, particularly those with an investment value of US $150 million or more that can commence implementation within a year and could be integrated into the NARA network of projects.
The Prime Minister, he went on to say that the Fast Jamaica framework will focus on projects in areas such as low-income housing, specialized healthcare, and telecommunications. The Prime Minister says projects rubber-stamped by Cabinet under Fast Jamaica will encounter what he describes as a shorter approval process.
Central to FAST Jamaica will be a strategic investment council. The elements of this already exist
between JAMPRO, DBJ, and the Cabinet Office. The Council will assess the strategic merit, economic impact, and national interest considerations of each proposed project and will recommend to Cabinet the most appropriate development modality, as well as whether the project should proceed through direct negotiation or a competitive process. Projects approved by Cabinet will be designated strategic investment projects and will benefit from accelerated approvals across government, coordinated regulatory engagement, and dedicated facilitation teams to ensure efficient execution.
The voice of the Prime Minister, Dr. Andrew Holness. Dr. Clark, do you think that he gave us enough? Or it's still a wait and see? You want to see if this will work? Because we have some very nice acronyms in government, right?
Right. And I mean, they've tried to do this before, the one-stop window and different ways to get these processes to be more efficient, tighter, clearer for the potential investor to know. And it just hasn't quite worked. I mean, I'd really want to know, perhaps the academic in me, why? What are the challenges? Why we cannot just get these various services, whether it's approvals at the regulatory stage, the development stage, and what is going to make FAST different? That is really where I think the rubber will hit the road. I mean, why haven't we been able to do it, and how will FAST overcome those challenges?
I'm really holding back not to ask Catherine Silvera first, but let me go back to the phone line. Lord B. Smith, you're there. You heard about FAST Jamaica. Impressive enough, or do we need more?
I don't know. The proof of the pudding has to be in the eating. We have been down this road before. I think this is one area that the credibility gap still remains, and this time around the Prime Minister will have to come good for me, because I've heard this thing before, and several acronyms have come to the fore. I mean, this Prime Minister has become famous for his many acronyms, and let's hope that this time round this fast will not only be fast but furious.
Touche, Lloyd B. Smith, touche. I'm going to go to Noon Harris, and then I'm going to come to Catherine Silvera. Noon Harris, fast, is it furious enough for you?
I hope it will be furious. But it's noting that the Prime Minister said that it's complementary to the NARA. So having received the $6 billion of international support and funding, there's a particular amount of it that is dedicated to the private sector. So it's not all for government to do government projects. So the private sector, so what FAST sounds like to me at this stage is that government office that will interface with the private sector to get those projects out, or at least some of those projects would, among others, would come under those. So it won't be government going out and trying to, but it will facilitate the spend, or the not sure how the funds will be dispersed, but the PPPs under that, because the international partners have provided that amount for private sector. Right. So I'm hoping that because that is so, that it will be more furious, that the private sector will come on board and try to utilize some of the funds that have been provided. Hopefully the terms are favorable and it can be furious.
What got me was the suggestion of the projects rubber stamped by Cabinet on the FAST will encounter a shorter approval process. Because sometimes that's where the things go to die, yes, in the process to approve them. You heard what the Prime Minister had to say on FAST. We refreshed your memory just now, Catherine Silvera. You still think it's not enough? We needed more?
Well, yes, because I think that, as we've all said, we've heard from the Prime Minister before with these acronyms, and we need to understand what is the structure, what are the KPIs, what are the timelines, what are the benchmarks that we're going to be utilizing it for. You know, I think a little over a year ago, the Prime Minister would have come out with Aspire, which was our growth program. And I think we still have that to be developed. I mean, I don't think that has moved much. I mean, obviously, the hurricane put a damper in that. But I think the truth of, or the proof will be in the pudding, is what are we going to see come out of it. And we definitely need to see it to be fast-tracked, fast and furious.
I want to let you go, but I can't let you go. I'm going to ask you one final thing. We're going to take a break, and then we're going to come back and take final thoughts. But the Prime Minister on the NHT, yeah? He says funds taken from the NHT do not deprive contributors from owning homes. That's what he told us. Let's have a listen to what he said about the continued drawdown of funds from the cash-rich National Housing Trust.
The challenge, Madam Speaker, is not that the funds that we take from the NHT deprives the contributor of an opportunity to own a house. That's not accurate. Because even though we have taken the funds, in this administration, we have done more than any other. If the funds remained with the NHT, they would largely have been invested in government securities and sat on the balance sheet as lending capacity, waiting for projects that too often do not materialize. $11.4 billion is the gross amount that the NHT transfers to the government. Gross. This is net off against the statutory deductions and taxes that the NHT itself is obliged to pay to the government. Technically, therefore, the government gets approximately $7 to $7.5 billion net from the NHT. Furthermore, there has been no issue of misuse or mismanagement of any NHT fund under my administration, like the Outameni scandal under the PNP.
The voice of the Prime Minister. Quickly, around the table, did he do enough to address this NHT matter? Dr. Klein.
Well, I think, broadly speaking, he did try again to explain what's happening with the housing market, and I think he justified why he wasn't just going to move some of the limits that would normally we expect to be moved every year around this time, because he realizes that has been part of what's fueling the increased prices, and you're always playing catch up. But in terms of the drawdown from the NHT, I mean, I think overall we're at the point where public bodies, it's not seen as good public finance policy to have public bodies sitting on large amounts of cash that they end up then either lending to the government or doing something else perhaps that's not quite aligned with their mandate. Now, if you want to say, well, since the housing trust can't then reduce what you take from us, that is, I think, where a lot of the discussion has been. If they can't build the houses, let me carry home more money and let me go and build my own house. That's the kind of thought process out there. The extent to which that will actually happen and that can actually work, because we know that there are shortages of almost every category of skilled labor in the construction sector, and that the skilled labor, the very skilled ones, will be contracted to, you know, the manufacturers who are building, etc., these larger projects. So it's trying to balance all of that. And as I said, you know, having the cash in hand and sitting on it when there are national imperatives that need to be delivered on doesn't quite make sense. So from that perspective, I know it is not palatable when you see the drawdown, but if you think about it, I mean, what would be the purpose of having the cash stay in-house?
Perhaps
because
create
of
another tax to take some more from the people or use what's there.
So I think we will probably get to the stage where we will have to have that discussion. Are we going to renegotiate the rate at which the NHT tax, that tax is being pulled out of our salaries, or are we going to have a dedicated dividend policy then across public bodies to say this is how we expect you to operate? And it will be on the flip side as well. I mean, if the entities run into trouble, what do? We expect the government to recapitalize them, right? So on the side of them being profitable, they should return a dividend to the country.
All right. We're up on a break. We're going to take the break. And when we come back, we're going to get final thoughts from our eminent panelists here. We've had them over time, and I'm holding on to them under the desk. You're not seeing it, but I'm actually holding on to them to remain here. But they have to remember. We're going to take the break right here, and then when we come back, closing thoughts from all our panelists. Sunka.
Interex Distributors Mega Tile Clearance Sale is happening this month. Yes, All tiles must go. Ceramic, porcelain, borders, and inserts at jaw-dropping prices. Create the look you love with premium tiles for less. Hurry to our showroom at 30 Dunrobin Avenue, Kingston. Call 876-501-2516, 876-550-5689. Interex Distributors, tile clearance. It's now on.
If you love the vibes, the laughs, and the real talk, then you're one of us. Don't just listen, belong. Join the nationwide 90 FM Family Club on Patreon.
Jamaica! Tune in to Cliff Views Online on March 20 from 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. as we broadcast from the University of the West Indies for World Water Day. This year's theme, Inclusivity and Equity, highlights the commitment to ensuring that every Jamaican has access to safe, reliable water. Representatives from Jamaica's major water agencies will be present to answer questions, share valuable information, and help you explore the many possibilities within the water industry. So tune in to Cliff Views Online for World Water Day celebration, Inclusivity and Equity. Catch the live stream on our YouTube channel at Nationwide 90 FM Live 2, or keep your station locked to Nationwide 90 FM, the new revolution in media. This broadcast is brought to you by the Ministry of Water, Environment and Climate Change.
Welcome back. Thank you so very much for sticking and staying with us. We're going to take closing remarks. It's our special post-budget presentation show where we examine what was said during the budget debate. Of course, the Prime Minister was on his feet in the House today, and he offered his contribution to the 2026-2027 budget debate. We're going to go around the table before we take closing remarks, beginning with you, Lloyd B. Smith. Give us your closing remarks on the Prime Minister's contribution to the budget debate.
Overall, it was visionary, conciliatory, and very, shall I say, patriotic, because we have seen in the past where sometimes politicians put politics before the country. I think he was very statesmanlike today in his presentation overall. My major concern is that we are moving from bureaucracy to technocracy, and I am concerned that we are not seeing where the elected representatives are being sufficiently brought into the whole business of government. And I have this gut feeling that the Prime Minister is taking on too much on himself, and he ought to delegate more responsibilities to his team, because he might end up with a burnout. That's how I see it. Because when I listen to him and see how passionate he is about what he wants to achieve, he cannot do it alone, and he needs the right team around him. And I don't know if the technocrats alone, who may not have that political savvy, who may not have that sort of connection with the people on the ground, to ensure that the policies redound to the benefit of the little man in the street. That is my concern at this point.
All right, thank you very much, Lloyd B. Smith. Newton Harris, over to you. Your final remarks?
I think the Prime Minister understands that what gets you there is not what will keep you there. I think he's finding another gear. I think I really like this. I think you can see from resilience to resurgence. So this idea of resilience came out, especially it was promoted a lot after COVID, and so how resilient is our country, but now he's finding another gear in resurgence, and resilience is defensive, resurgence is another thing. So I like the vision, and I like the presentation A+, and I'm looking forward to seeing how Minister Williams ties it up, and how then through the sectoral and other presentations, and then how, when the real meat is put on the bones, to see how the entire structure looks. I'm looking forward to that very much.
Dr. Clark?
As I indicated earlier, I think the details and where the analysis leads us of why the previous efforts haven't materialized, especially in the fast and the narrow. Why is it we need this, and how is what we are implementing going to be different? The housing market I guess he has put more emphasis into trying to understand what is happening, what are the challenges, and to see what are the other levers he can move apart from the traditional expectations. I know a lot of persons were like, oh, just $1,000 on the minimum wage. We're not seeing the NHC benefit increase, or more persons can join in. But I think he's realizing that if we keep doing the same thing and expect a different result, so just trying to chart new course, new avenues, and we hope that the ministers and their opposition counterparts will, kind of take the bull by the horns within the sectoral debate to try and hammer out the how and to get the action items going.
We give the final sip to Catherine Silvera.
Well, I think I would have to say that after listening to the Prime Minister, I am encouraged to believe that in the next 20 to 30 years, it's going to be a much different Jamaica, and I look forward to that. The vision, all of the different developments that he spoke about, the restructuring of Black River, Lucy, Port Antonio, a lot, wide and varied, right from the east to the west, the north to the south, and
a new Jamaica emerging.
I think for young persons, it's very. They appreciate to hear that, because that's what they are going to live in, as a prime adult. That's what they're going to live in if it comes to fruition. So I think that that's what we want to see as well coming out of this presentation, is the timelines, the numbers, the implementation. Let's not have that implementation problem.
Deficit no more. Absolutely. Well, all right. That's where we have to leave it for today. We want to thank all of you for watching and for listening. We want to thank Catherine Silvera, Dr. Clark, Newton Harris, and of course Lloyd B. Smith on the phone. Thanks to our super producer Dana Davey. Thanks to our technical operator, the man behind the controls, our pilot, Andrew Glenn Anderson. Don't just said, folks, that's his name, Andrew and Glenn together. This has been a special edition of Nationwide at 5. I'm Tyrone Reed saying good evening.
Get ready, Jamaica! The NNN School Tour 2026 is bringing energy, talent, and excitement straight to your school.
So pull up your pants and put it on your waist.
Every Friday, we spotlight the creativity and skills of our students. We're coming with games, prizes, and electrifying live performances.
Missing.
This week, we're heading to Bridgeport High School in Portmore on March 20 from 1 p.m. to 3 p.m. Don't miss the vibes, the fun, and your chance to shine. The NNN School Tour 2026 is where talent meets opportunity. See you there. This broadcast is brought to you by the Police Civilian Oversight Authority, Tip Friendly Society, LMH Publishing, Wisynco Group, Digicel, Nutrition Products Limited, and Mystic Mountain Jamaica.
From the biggest tracks to the biggest energy, Nationwide keeps it moving. If you love the vibes, come and lock in with us for real.
World boss, leave a prison could stop me.
Join the Nationwide 90 FM Family Club today on Patreon.
Practice. God, me say you watch you over me practice.